Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 2C TV, your global news channel. I'm Maya 2C, and David Lammy, the Justice Secretary of the United Kingdom, has destroyed the Constitution, traditions of British liberty and British justice going back to the days of Magna Carta and before Magna Carta, governed by consent, Ethelred. Everything is being destroyed by one man, David Lammy. We're going to give you guys the latest update on what's going on, and we're going to be joined by a very special guest, the legal expert Stephen Barrett, who will be explaining about the history of this and what's going on with this government. First things first, just a heads up, you're going to see a massive face of David Lammy right now on your screen, so it's a little bit too late for the heads up. In case you haven't heard, we just received an announcement that because of a backlog, trials by a jury will be cancelled, except for exceptional cases, major, murders and manslaughter. But the Ministry of Justice have now produced a new presentation that sets out that Crown Courts are facing record backlogs with more than 78,000 cases waiting to be completed. So they thought the best thing to do to fix this is to basically just completely reverse everything about the legal traditions in the United Kingdom. Now, of course, when it comes to the situation in England and Wales, in practice, this means that suspects being charged with serious crimes today in 2025 may not actually even be on trial until 2030. Yeah. If you're charged today, you have to wait, you have to be in jail until 2030, until to actually even get a trial, and then there won't be any jury to decide. Now, David Lammy, in opposition himself, said this.
It's fundamental to our constitutional arrangement. We should not use the coronavirus as a cover to abandon juries, which is the opportunity to be judged by 12 of your peers. Juries being replaced by judges and magistrates is effectively the establishment, rather than your peers who live in your community deciding what justice should be.
Well, I agree with David Lammy in 2020. He was right. What happened to that David Lammy? He was fighting against it because during the lockdown on COVID, there were conversations about basically speeding up cases. And he said, no, it's very important to defend the tradition, saying Robert Buckland is wrong to consider proposals to limit jury trials for certain offences. The right to trial by your fellow citizens is fundamental to our democracy. It would be wrong of the government to abandon this valuable tradition for short-term benefit. He also said the right of an individual to the lawful judgment of his equals was enshrined in the Magna Carta of 1215, and jury trials form part of the bedrock of our democracy. It will be a historic mistake to limit them. Now, to get a better perspective on what we are dealing with this whole mess, we're going to be joined by a very special guest, the barrister and legal expert Stephen Barrett is now with us. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, it's a pleasure as always to be with you.
How is your day going with this?
So I want to put this in terms that your viewers can understand simply.
Yeah.
I mean, this is insane. Okay, there is no I would never even considered that anybody would attack trial by jury in this way. It's such a settled part of our constitution. We had to drag it out of the Normans kicking and screaming. Before trial by jury, we had something called trial by ordeal, which was rather nasty. And then we had pressing and all sorts, which is where they would literally put weights on you until you pled guilty or didn't plead guilty. And if you were guilty of something that would steal your assets, you probably wouldn't plead guilty. So you'd rather be crushed to death so that your children didn't starve. I mean, it was a rather grim time before trial by jury. But, we got it back in 1215. And the idea that it can be taken away is so absurd. I think it will. I need it to highlight to everybody why this mantra that we've been sold since the 90s was complete tosh. Lawyers are not gods. Lawyers are not superheroes. Lawyers are not going to look after you and make sure your country is a nice, happy place to raise and a safe place to raise children, which is what I think all of us should want. We have to do that ourselves. Fundamentally, our constitution doesn't have this sort of ridiculous, or didn't used to have this ridiculous faith in legal rights and legal protections, which the French Constitution has and the American Constitution has. Our faith is in us. We didn't defeat the Normans by the Normans agreeing to go to court and the judge that the Normans had appointed, finding against the Normans. That's not how we did things. So we really need to rediscover this, because it's absolutely brutal. It's monstrous. This is tyranny. That there's nothing else to call it really than tyranny. It's a wide-scale removal of your protected rights. I should flag that the previous Labour government removed your rights and protections for offences lower down. Okay, and so if we bear in mind that these are Fabians, when they got in last time, Fabians are slow-moving Marxist communists. When they got in last time, they came for the magistrates' courts. They've largely dealt with all of that. And people got tried before or convinced to plead guilty to judges and then tried before. The Fabians have now moved up the lever. They're moving up the temperature gauge on the frog. They're increasing the temperature at which the frog is being boiled. Don't believe for a second this is about a backlog. The backlog is very largely artificially induced. It's kept that way because the prison service doesn't work. So I literally talked to one minister, not a Labour minister, who said, well, the problem is if we clear the court backlog, we haven't got enough prisons. So it's in no way about dealing with the backlog. This is absolutely sinister. The other thing your viewers need to know is that our judges are now politicised, and again, the preceding Labour government did that by getting rid of the way that we had appointed judges for hundreds of years, getting in an independent group of people who, of course, will then turn out to be Blairites, and setting a test for judges where they must demonstrate their commitment to DEI. Okay, if you have to demonstrate your commitment to DEI, then you are political. There's no two ways about that. You are supporting the idea of this ridiculous identity politics, which neither you nor I believe in. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it, Maya? I mean, we're mates, and they're trying to put some sort of wedge between us on the basis of our skin tones. It's just absolutely absurd. Can go boil its head. But yeah, this is absolutely sinister.
Yeah, so we do know that obviously it's been a tradition for some time now, for a very long time, that the Crown doesn't get involved with politics. We get that. Not the day-to-day politics of the country, but am I correct to say that the Crown is the protector of the Constitution, right? And because of that, theoretically at least, academically speaking, not practically, we don't expect King Charles, it's not even about the king, it's about the Crown, to even say anything, because this is a political decision. I get that. But if, for example, we have a group of people who are now politicians and go into the House of Commons, just like what happened a while ago after Charles I, and decide to slowly scrap the Constitution, isn't the job of the Crown, at least indirectly, not directly, somehow behind closed doors, to protect the Constitution?
Yes, I think that's right. And of course, these people would immediately poo-poo that and laugh it off. And one of the ways that our protections have been taken away from us is this sort of way in which they sort of sneerily look at our legal traditions and our constitutional traditions. But the Crown, and you're quite right to point out it's the Crown, not Charles, exists to protect us from tyranny. That's its one real sole function. And the Crown should really not pass this. I've speculated before publicly that I don't think the Crown should accede to a law of mass state killing. It's not in their manifesto. We had no idea that they were doing this. This is a uniquely low legitimacy government. I'll explain that. I think that the collective votes Keir Starmer got, the total votes, are less than 20% of the total people who could have voted. Yep. And they're fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn got when he lost, around about the same number of votes that John Major got when he lost. That means that they don't have a legitimacy. They have a huge majority, but that's been described, I think, rather accurately by Andrew Neil as an ocean wide and a puddle deep. And then to start doing, I mean, it's not conceivable that any government would have even announced this at any point in the last 800 years. It's so, jury trial and trial by jury is so settled that our great constitutionalist Dicey barely spends any time on it, because he basically doesn't need to remind us about it, because we all know about the right to trial by jury. We let them take it away, trial by magistrate. We let them take that away, and Blair took it away, and they've just got cocky. They've just got cocky, and now they're coming for more. And what they want is a communist society, which we know has show trials and corrupt political judges. We know where we are going, and it is time for Britain to put our heels in the mud and stop this, and to stop believing that some lawyer is going to come along and magically save us. I'm terribly sorry, not going to happen.
One final thing to ask you, because, oh, by the way, Stephen Barrett has done a special show on 2CTV Plus explaining, obviously, the Constitution and everything else. But there are a couple of liberals in the live chat saying that, no, we can do this because the British Constitution doesn't exist because it's not written. Can you once again clarify to the public that that is incorrect?
We have a constitution. We have a constitution. If you didn't have a constitution, your country would be in anarchy. So obviously we have a constitution. That's a series of laws. They're all laws which are
and it's written. They are written.
And they are written down.
Yes.
For the very important reason, Maya, that if they weren't written down, we'd forget some of them. Now the constitution does go through periods of forgetfulness. We've probably been through, during our membership of the European Union, the longest period of forgetfulness. The president of our Supreme Court is desperately diplomatic. So I made a point about international law not being law here unless we incorporate it via Parliament, which is our position. I was attacked publicly for this. And then the nice and charming president of the Supreme Court said, oh, no, Stephen is right. But to let them off the hook, or to protect their little wounded egos, he said, I think there has been a widespread misunderstanding of the Constitution. It's sort of, I think a lot of people are making a lot of mistakes. And when I talk about the Constitution, there are two enemies to truth I have. One is that there are definitely out there, Maya, people who are absolutely delusional about the Constitution, think it, basically that Arthur Pendragon's going to come out of a hill and save people, and that they, all of this, the freeman of the land nonsense, which is not helpful, I think, for understanding the Constitution. And the other side are the lefty lawyers who want our Constitution to be something it isn't. It's very important to remember what our Constitution is. What that means is that other than the King refusing royal assent, we don't have a mechanism to stop this bill if they bring it in as a bill. It's not a manifesto pledge. So the House of Lords can block it. And the House of Lords are doing a jolly good job blocking things at the moment. They've blocked the employment bill, which is 330 pages of regulation, which will just mean nobody has a job. So you'll have fantastic job protections, you just won't have a job. They are looking to be blocking the mass state killing bill because, again, that has absolutely no legitimacy. And these people are squealing like anybody's business. I hope the House of Lords step in. If the House of Lords is not able to stop this, then I think we should be urging the King. I think we need to go back to our legal power to petition the King. Okay, again, the Blairites, they always do it. It's so simple what they do, the Fabians. They don't immediately attack you. They don't immediately scare you. Firstly, they just say, calm down, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't be dramatic. We'll all be fine. It's not that important. And then they gave you an online system whereby you can petition Parliament. Does everybody know? I hope everybody knows that. You probably signed a few. That is infantilizing garbage. They don't. We know that they don't. They said, if a petition gets over 100,000, we will debate it. Well, there are countless ones that have got over 100,000 that they haven't debated. One that got 3 million. They still haven't done anything about. That's a no to digital ID. And it's just a way of infantilizing you, controlling you. You feel as though you've done something because you clicked a few things and you sent an email. There is a big difference between that and writing to the King saying, Your Majesty, stop this now. And I'm starting increasingly to encourage people to do that. I think the sheer physicality of it is quite important. The Postal Service is part of our Constitution, and it has a really great function. Every MP has a little pigeonhole in Parliament. Every member of the House of Lords can be written to their little pigeonhole. You can write to His Majesty the King. Now, obviously, security will vet that, and that's perfectly fine and true. But if there's nothing dangerous in it, and it's not grotesquely offensive, it gets to His Majesty the King, or at least his secretary. And if his secretary receives 100,000 letters saying, we really don't want you to remove jury trial, then he gets up from his desk and he walks over into the King's office and he says, Your Majesty, Sir, I think we have a problem. There's a matter I need to discuss. Can we find 5 minutes to bring this up? And that is part of growing up again and engaging again in our country. People are going to have to engage in our country. This whole shush, everything will be fine is not true. We are heading towards social credit systems through state-controlled judges having state trials, utterly communistic stuff that is just not going to be very pleasant. Very sadly, there are humans who walk among us who are deeply unpleasant individuals. These are them. And just to remind everybody, Shakespeare, fair is foul and foul is fair. They always try and pretend that they are fair and that they're marvelous and charming and lovely. I look like I've just been pulled backwards through a hedge. Just trust me, because I'm not trying to steal your lives or control you. But we can get this back if we fight back. And I'm going to go on Talk TV later to do it. I'm going to do my own little short YouTube video, because I think my videos are better when they're short. So I'm going to do a short one on this. And get it out. But we are all in this together. We do have a constitution. There are ways and means that we can protect ourselves. Write to your MP as well, and get it known that you're objecting to it. Organise locally, form groups. Facebook is probably the most important social media tool for politics.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. In defense of the Constitution, Stephen Barrett, who ironically has the same hairstyle as Charles I. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon, Stephen. Cheers. Okay, so we're going to continue this because there's a lot of reaction to this from the political establishment and the opposition. The whole Constitution is being completely shattered by one man and one party in power. It's getting worse, ladies and gentlemen. So first things first, let's go to Advanced UK. Advanced UK responded by saying that jury trial rights, civil liberties and the future of British justice are under threat as David Lammy proposes judge-only trials for crimes carrying sentences of up to 5 years. This is an assault on our fundamental freedoms, paving the way for unpolitically convenient convictions and the end of open democratic justice in the UK. So if this goes through, expect a lot of political prisoners who will be basically sentenced up to 5 years for simply criticising their government. So that's Advanced UK. We also have a reaction from the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. Kemi says juries are not just part of our tradition. They put ordinary men and women of every walk of life at the heart of justice. Labour wants to shred this basic right, replacing the common sense of the jury box with rule by lawyers. It is a short-term decision that risks fairness, undermines public trust and erodes the very foundation of our justice system. David Lammy used to agree, so what's changed? Conservatives believe in our traditions and we believe in trial by jury. So that was also, obviously we got Advanced UK and the Tory party. We also have independent MP Rupert Lowe saying we must defend the jury trial. That is absolutely vital. There's been a number of individual MPs as well, including David Davis, Libertarian MP, saying David Lammy is proposing that jury trials be scrapped for all cases not involving rapists or killers. This is a disgrace. It is an even bigger disgrace that he has not discussed this with Parliament. Now, that is one of the major issues with this, because not only, I'm going to go back to the role of the Crown. The Crown is the protector of the Constitution. We will talk about that properly, as obviously Stephen Barrett also mentioned. But the role of Parliament, forget about the fact that they didn't even put it in their manifesto, because the manifestos are not really legally binding. That's fine. That's just your sales pitch to the public. But going through the House of Commons and then House of Lords before you actually mention this to the public is extremely important. That aside, we still haven't unfortunately received any reaction. We've received reactions from the Tory party, Advanced UK and others, but we haven't received any reactions so far. Obviously, we're doing this live so far from Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK. So we don't know exactly when we're going to get some statement or reaction from them. I'm just going to double check to see if they have anything yet. No, nothing from Reform UK or Nigel Farage yet. We'll wait for their reaction at some point. Now, let's get some reaction, then I'm going to talk about the Crown. Ivan says, is it legal for the fool to do this? Yes, technically yes, because we still have parliamentary supremacy, which means that if they have a majority in Parliament, technically they can pass it through. But the issue with this is that, as Stephen Barrett also explained, we have safety nets, constitutional safety nets. Number one, House of Lords. Number two, the Crown. Now, the House of Lords is still technically the parliamentary arm of the crown, of the palace. It's there to keep an eye on the corrupt politicians. Now, unfortunately, the House of Lords has been politicized. We got a bunch of politicians in the House of Lords, and that wasn't supposed to be the case. We got political leaders keep appointing idiots and failed politicians to the House of Lords. We don't need politicians in the House of Lords. Stop it. We need to stop the politicization of the House of Lords. It's supposed to be the safety net and people on behalf of the crown to be there. That's the point of the House of Lords. House of Commons is for the commoners. House of Lords is supposed to be the arm of the crown. Now, constitutionally, when it comes to Britain in general, because obviously it's not really just about England, it's about Britannia, so that includes Wales and Scotland. Historically speaking, the role of the crown is important. It's nothing to do with the king. It doesn't matter if you like the king or dislike the king. It's not about the king. The king is not important. It's the crown. The king is the protector of the crown, but the crown is the protector of the constitution. And as Stephen said, we must start promoting and pushing for the public to use the crown more. We have been discouraged to do that since the 1990s, since Tony Blair. Essentially, they cut off the relationship between the palace and the populace. That has to go back. This is the only way. In fact, I will support a political party, when the elections come, if they are promoting the traditional constitution approach. Any party that pushes towards bringing back the powers of the crown, not politically, the king doesn't have to get involved politically, but the powers of the crown constitutionally to be able to block, and because they can block, the king can block this. But the people need to, as Stephen suggested, send letters, send emails, constantly get all your neighborhood, your towns, your villages, your cities, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, if they start communicating with the palace, because it's not about the king. The secretary will see it. The office will see it. Then they'll have to tell the king. The king will have no choice but to have a conversation with the prime minister. And then there will be the constitutional pressure. This is the only way this can be done. Nina says, please send him to jail. Sick and really tired of Lammy and all their scumbag Labour. Keep up with all the good work that you and all your team do. God bless. Thank you so much, Nina. I appreciate that. Community-based courts opens the door to Sharia. That's the other thing as well, because none of these reforms will be touching the Sharia courts, and because obviously they're not technically part of the legal framework, but in the communities, the Sharia courts will basically decide. They are their own tribunals, and when there's a dispute amongst Muslims, then those courts will decide. And we're just sitting here in the country saying, so wait, we have multiple tiers of justice. We already have the Sharia courts, who are tribunals. Then we got these ones. Then you got the existing courts, crown courts, that will then have different tiers. So if you're a political prisoner, you're politically charged, you're not going to get any jury. So going forward, if anything happens to people like Tommy Robinson or Nia Korbani or anybody who basically keep getting charged for political reasons. I mean, even now they haven't really had any jury anyway, right? But going forward, there will not be any chance of them demanding to have trial by jury, which means a bunch of lawyers will have to just decide whether this person is a criminal or not. And you have no say in this. It's tyranny. Star Helix says it's still important to sign the petitions as well as right to the king. I didn't know that. Government is ignoring petitions as evidence. Yeah, because the petitions don't have any power. They have no legal power. Petitions are meaningless. It's still important to do the petitions because symbolically it shows the opinions of the public. And but on the other hand, it's very important to not just put pressure on your MPs, but the members of the Lords and also the palace. Most importantly, the palace. And this could be a very key moment in the history of this country, modern history of this country, that people could talk about in the future, saying when the British rebelled against the political establishment by asking the crown for help. People keep doing this nonsense. When they go on social media, they keep posting saying, where is the king? Where is the king? Oh, we need the king to help. That's not how real life works. You can't just tweet about it. If the pressure continues, if people start actually communicating with the palace, Because it's not even about the king, it's the crown that matters. It's the overall state that matters. They can stop this. The House of Lords can stop this. But they need to know that the public appetite is against this. Because the biggest enemy that we have right now, the biggest obstacle right now, it's not David Lammy. It's not even the Labour government. It's not even MPs in the House of Commons. It's the liberal mainstream media. They are the ones trying their best to control their narrative. If a few of you start signing petitions and post some social media stuff, and maybe a few of you will write to your MPs, the media will shut it down. They will not talk about it. They will create a narrative so the palace, civil servants, MPs, ministers would live in a bubble that, okay, we've heard some crazy right-wingers oppose this policy, but it seems like everybody else in the country is okay with it, right? Yeah, they're fine. Nobody's complaining. If they see that we are actually fighting against it, and the only way to do that is to shatter the power of the liberal media, all of them, from Sky News, BBC News, Channel 4, all these guys. You will force them to report it. And it's happened before. Use the existing powers that we've had. Obviously, the powers of new media, channels like 2CTV, social media, independent reporters, everybody. Keep shouting about it. Not just shout about, oh, well, we need help or we need the king. No. Talk about what's going on. If tomorrow, next week, hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people start actually communicating with the palace, with their MPs, and they boast about it on social media, everywhere, outside, in your barbershops, on your taxis. Everybody keep talking about it. That's the only way to do it. Not promoting petitions. No. Talk about what you've done. And then get others to do it as well. This is the only way you can fight back. And then we will talk about it. We will report it. It's our job to report it. And we will force the mainstream media to report it. And that is how you shatter the illusion of the narrative being controlled by the mainstream media. This is the only way. And once the media can't control the narrative, MPs, members of the House of Lords, and the Crown will realize, oh, there's something happening in the country. We received millions of emails. And now the media is talking about it. Nowhere to hide. Looks like kangaroo courts are the way forward. Yeah, that's basically what they are doing. Juries are meant as a safety barrier to prevent such a thing. Yes. And considering that the legal system has been infiltrated by a bunch of Marxists and liberal lefties, then you're not going to get the actual fairness if they have full power. Labour only care about one thing only. They want to turn the UK into a one-party communist state forever. Yeah, I mean, again, as Stephen Barrett's explained, this is the slow march and crawl of the Fabian society mentality and everything that they've been doing for the past few decades, which is to normalize socialism and normalize tyranny through democratic means and slowly through parliament. Slowly but surely, they take away this part of the constitution. They take away this level of your liberties. They add a little bit more tax, and then they get you to fight against your fellow citizens. But the best example that I have is when these guys propose, for example, I'm going to exaggerate the example, obviously, right? Your neighbor is very fat, very overweight, supersized, unhealthy, obese. And they say, and you don't like the neighbor, you have a fight all the time. They say, we're gonna have a new tax on fat people, right? And you say, well, yeah, because I don't like my neighbor, I'm gonna support this policy. This is a very exaggerated example, but they do it all the time. Things that you don't like, they'll get you to support it against fellow citizens. And you think they're not gonna come for you. Because tomorrow, they're going to come for something that you like. These happened all the time. The slippery slope happens all the time. They propose, they've obviously proposed changing the toppings of pizza in the UK. Limiting the toppings that you could have on a pizza and the type of toppings, because it started before with sugar tax. And people said, yeah, sugar tax is bad. I've heard some scientists said it's sugar. Yeah, it's bad, obviously. Yeah, we know it's bad. Sugar tax is the only way because it's magic. You put tax on it, everybody becomes healthy. Yeah, sure, government, do that. And say, okay, well, wait for the next one. Then size. than the size of pizza and the type of toppings. And these are trivial things. People think they're trivial. Symbolically and literally, this is the slow crawl of tyranny. They come for you. Every aspect of your life. And by the end of the day, everything's gone. The mandatory hijab in Iran after 1979 was not introduced by force from day one. No, it wasn't. The beginning of it, it was still normal. Then you had some clerics and some other hijabis encouraging other women to cover their hair, to be modest, just not by force. It's nice, put the hijab on. And a few of them did. Because they say, you say you're a Muslim, right? Okay, then put a hijab on. Sure. And then they slowly said, okay, government buildings, public buildings, modesty is being encouraged, so please put your hijab on. And then they said government buildings, mandatory. Schools, mandatory. And then the whole of the country, mandatory. Slippery slope every single time. You misunderstood. Community-appointed judges will legitimize Sharia courts under this new legislation. Non-Muslims will have to leave Muslim area. No, so this will not actually repel any of that. If you read the proposal, the Sharia side, the tribunals will not be touched in any of the proposed reforms. And one of the issues that we currently have is that a lot of the existing areas or communities where the Sharia councils are operating, they still haven't received any legal power to enforce it on non-Muslims in the areas. Now that will happen in about 20 years, 10 years, whatever. Not yet, not under this legislation, because this will not be able to touch that. This is simply to, as they say, the excuse is, oh, we have a backlog. We have to do something about all these cases. What do we do? Well, we will speed up the cases by getting rid of the jury. That is the excuse that they're using. But they're not going to be, not this legislation, to give any extra legal powers for Sharia councils to enforce it on non-Muslims. Anyway, so this is, it's going to be an ongoing situation. I'm just going to double check, because obviously we have to ensure that we give the right to all sides to have their say. We had a reaction from the Tory party, Kemi Badenoch, Advanced UK, Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe. And unfortunately, it's been a few hours, but still no reaction from Nigel Farage or Reform UK. Perhaps they will do a proper reaction at some point tomorrow, maybe, or maybe later tonight. So unfortunately, we were not able to give you guys the reaction from Nigel Farage. I don't know what they're doing. They're probably busy with something else. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.